This week on Vaticano, Pope Francis meets the Prime Minister of Romania and promises to pay a visit to the country next year. The Holy Father travels to central Italy to visit Catholic communities that have flourished since the Second Vatican Council. Also, meet the Israeli ambassador to the Holy See to discuss the highlights of diplomatic relations between the Holy See and the State of Israel. For this and more, Vaticano starts now. This week, Pope Francis met with some 300 members of the Circolo San Pietro. St. Peter's Circle was founded in 1869 by a group of lay people from Rome to help the poor and the sick.
Your apostolate represents a chance and an instrument to answer the call to sanctity that the Lord addresses to each and every one of us.
On the occasion of the meeting, the organization brought their collection for the Pope's charity fund. Pope Francis met with a delegation from the Belgian association called Loggia. Loggia is a Catholic organization founded in Flanders, committed to spreading Christian values in the fields of economy, sustainable development, politics, and religion.
Through your presence in the heart of society and the media, you bear witness to the fact that the choice of following Christ and putting into practice his words never represents a loss of humanity, but encourages the development of our talents and skills to the benefit of everybody, at the service of building a society which is fairer, more fraternal, more human, in unison with the heart of God.
The Holy Father encouraged the members of the association to continue their mission and never forget that the gospel is the only way of building a society with values. The Holy Father received Miss Viorica Dancila, Prime Minister of Romania, in audience. During the meeting, the two leaders reflected on the positive relations between the Holy See and Romania. The future prospects of Romania and the European Union were also discussed, as Romania will assume the presidency of the Council of the European Union in the first half of 2019. Ms. Dancila invited the Holy Father to visit Romania in 2019, and the Pope welcomed the invitation and said that he will do so. The Prime Minister presented the Pope with some Romanian seeds and a tree to be planted in the Vatican gardens. For his part, Pope Francis gave Ms. Dancila an Angel of Peace engraving. In a meeting with Metropolitan Rastislav, the leader of the Czech and Slovak Orthodox Church, Pope Francis recalled two of the saints that the Eastern Orthodox and Catholic churches have in common, Saints Cyril and Methodius.
They were able to overcome the divisions that had risen among Christian communities of different cultures and traditions. In this sense, we can say that they were veritable precursors of ecumenism. They remind us that unity does not mean uniformity, but reconciliation of diversities within the Holy Spirit.
At the end of the meeting, Metropolitan Rastislav gave Pope Francis an icon of Saints Cyril and Methodius, along with one of Saint Rastislav, the Prince of Great Moravia. He had invited the missionaries, Saints Cyril and Methodius, to evangelize in the territory known today as Slovakia and Czech Republic. The bishops of Myanmar, also known as Burma, arrived in Rome for their ad limina apostolorum visit. During a 90-minute-long conversation with the Pope, the bishops raised themes such as the Rohingya crisis, the conflict in the state of Rakhine, and the role of the Church in the peace process. After the meeting with the Pope, we spoke to Cardinal Charles Bo about the papal trip to Myanmar in November of last year.
Now, after his visit, I think there's a lot of improvement going on in the sense that the Catholic Church, especially the bishops, could meet the government and also meet the military personnel, the generals. That's the time that we could still talk about the peace process. And also we have asked the Holy Father to send a message to the government, to Aung San Suu Kyi, and as well as to the military senior general. I said he will do that, of course, with caution and with prudence.
Cardinal Bo said that the conflict has displaced about 100,000 people. Cardinal suggested organizing an international conference to tackle the crisis. The Rohingya are 2 million stateless people who move between India, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Indonesia, and Thailand and live the humanitarian crisis. On Thursday, Pope Francis paid a visit to 2 small Catholic communities in central Italy that have flourished since the Second Vatican Council. Our correspondent, Andrea Gagliarducci, provides us with more details on this half-day papal trip to Lopiano and Nomadelphia.
Well, we have to remember that Lopiano is one of the realities that comes from the Focolari movement. Focolari movement started back during the Second World War. The first charism is that of unity. Unity among themselves in the so-called Focolari that are just, families, groups of people that gather together. Unity among religions, unity, cultural unity.
The Focolari movement is made up of around 2 million Catholic members from all over the world, as well as thousands of members from different religious traditions, including Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, and Hindus.
So the main event was the meeting with the people of Lopiano. That is not just the people that lives in this area, but it's also the people that is around the area. And the Pope told them to be able to renovate themselves, staying as they are.
The story of Lopiano is just beginning. You are just beginning. It is a small seed sown in the furrows of history that has already sprouted luxuriantly, but needs to develop strong roots and bear abundant fruit at the service of the mission of proclaiming and incarnating the gospel of Jesus that the Church is called to live today. This calls for humility, openness, synergy, and the capacity to take risks.
The main event was this meeting that was preceded by the Pope's veneration of the tabernacle, because the church is always the center of this area, and in front of an icon, the icon of Mary Theotokos, Mary, Mother of God.
The Holy Father said that we shouldn't forget that Mary was a layperson. It's a great source of inspiration to know that the Mother of God was the first lay disciple of Jesus.
What is particular of this icon is that it's been depicted by an Hindu artist. So that's what you have in Lopiano. You have a lot of people of different religions that gather together under one only common value.
For example, a Buddhist monk named Ardent Light fully embraced the ideal of the Focolari movement, so much so that he came with 9 other Buddhist monks from Thailand to live in Lopiano and participate in the life of the Catholic community.
And in this Focolari movement ideal, he also found shared values with the Catholic community over there. When he's in Lopiano, he stays with the Catholic community, he says the breviary with them, he prays with them, and as a consequence, he also venerates the tabernacle. And they told me that sometimes they heard him saying to his monks that if they had problems, they could pray the tabernacle because they will find someone who listens there.
Nomadelphia, which in Greek means where is brotherhood is law, is a small community and commune within the municipality of the Tuscan city of Grosseto, which is made up of practicing Catholics that have adopted a lifestyle inspired by what is reported in the biblical book, the Acts of the Apostles.
But the Pope met them and said Nomadelphia is the future. Nomadelphia was a prophetic sign. And it was a meeting with the small community over there, 3,000 people. All of them, they don't call them by last name because they want to be called with the name of the city because they feel just like an enclosed community. As Lopiano is an open-air community, Nomadelphia is more closed, but always open to anyone who wants to join the idea.
I would like to underline also another prophetic sign, a sign of great humanity of Nomadelphia. It is the loving care for the elderly who, even when not in good health, live with their families and are supported by the brothers and sisters of the entire community. I urge you to continue along this path, embodying the model of fraternal love through works and visible signs, in the many situations where evangelical charity calls you, but always preserving the spirit of Don Zeno, who wanted a light and essential Nomadelphia in its structures.
The community was founded by Father Zeno Saltini, who after his ordination to the priesthood in 1931, spiritually adopted a 17-year-old boy who had recently left prison as his son. Today, there are some 5,000 young people who have been welcomed into the Grosseto commune. Many of the couples in the community have become foster parents to the children and young people they have welcomed.
Veloci, 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 stringetevi al Papa!
Thanks for watching. Get ready to take a look at Holy See diplomacy in action. Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano.
In April, during the e-commerce week, the intergovernmental group of experts on e-commerce flocked to the UN Geneva. More than 1,000 participants and 387 government representatives discussed the digital economy. The Holy See was among them. Your Excellency, although the number of internet users grew by 60% between 2010 and 2015, more than half of the world's population still remains offline. One of the overall objectives of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals is that no one is left behind. In your opinion, why are these super rich mega product provider companies not using a fraction of their money and put the entire world just online?
Yeah. This is certainly an aspect that can be criticized. No? But we have to be also attentive. I think for the first time, the common interest of companies, of providers and users is so connected, you know. So it means even if they do not enough and they are the richest company in the world, they still do many things because you see tremendous growth. I think the occasion is good, the chance is good, and certainly what has been done is not enough. But I'm positive.
Digitalization has the capacity not only to connect local small and medium enterprises with markets, but also to connect populations with services that otherwise would be not accessible.
Let's say, what about the church? Let's about spiritual message, you know, what we are talking about. It's good, you know, we can write on this way. We have all of a sudden many connections, many sites. I remember even, let's say, they can offer you even, how to say, incognito possibilities to use sites in order to promote your ideas, I would say, education, so on. This is why the generosity is important. This is why what we are saying is important, because everybody must be reminded that without generosity, without a future that is not good for everybody, it's not a good future. This is what we believe.
Digitalization should help enterprises, in particular small, medium-sized ones, to overcome barriers to their expansion. It should facilitate the scale-up of small and medium-sized enterprises by providing vehicles to build verifiable online transaction records that may help attract new customers and business partners, as well as financial opportunities.
So this is almost a continuation of my question before, Your Excellency. Aren't those companies who design these digital systems, for example, for financial banking transactions, the very same that control or want to control the market? Your view on that?
Private enterprise will behave very unsolidarily if we do not take care of the solidarity, and this is the task of the state. The state is there not to impeach somebody to be better, but to help those who are going to be left behind. So I think this is something new probably in the economic models. We believe, the Catholic Church believes that all economic models are good, but behind the good economic model, it must be clear concept of human dignity. If there is a clear concept, everything will be years of, how to say, disequilibrium, but then it will find. So I think we cannot lose an occasion. It's too early to criticize what is going on. I think occasions are more, but we will have to, certainly public authority will have new responsibilities, very important responsibilities that did not exist in the past.
So this was our first part of the interview. In the second part, we will talk about, among other topics, digital inclusiveness and the creation of a better and more effective system of international economic cooperation. The head of risk compliance from the UK summed it up this way: only marriages, divorces and selling your house are not digital yet.
In a few moments, we'll be back with more on Vaticano. More on Vaticano begins now. The year 2018 marks the 25th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the State of Israel and the Holy See. Our correspondent, Juliet Linley, met with the Israeli ambassador, Oren David, to discuss the highlights of their diplomatic ties. The Israeli ambassador to the Holy See took office on September 1st, 2016. Prior to this appointment, Mr. David served in Canada, the United States, Romania, and as a non-residential ambassador to Moldova and Malta.
Ambassador Oren David, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
So let's start with the fact that ever since Pope Paul VI, popes have been visiting your country. How significant is that for Israel? How important is that?
Well, it is most significant. The four visits of the four popes. Pope Paulus VI was the first one. And the very, very significant visit on behalf of Paul St. John Paul II, who came during the Millennium Year 2000, and prayed at the Western Wall. This was followed by Pope Benedictus XVI in 2009, and by the current Pope Francis, who made a significant visit, and significantly also decided that his first visit outside of Italy will take place in Israel. And during his visit, he prayed at the Western Wall, but he made a very significant gesture by laying a wreath on the tomb of the founder of Zionism, Theodor Herzl. So that was very much appreciated.
And speaking of Pope Francis, here we remember so well that moment when he gathered Shimon Peres and Mahmoud Abbas here at the Vatican to pray in 2014. What effect did that have back home?
It was a gesture which was appreciated. It was a spiritual event of importance, bringing two leaders, a unique leader from the Israeli side, our past president and past prime minister, Shimon Peres, who was an outstanding figure in Israeli politics almost since the foundation of the state, and the president of the Palestinian Authority. So the message of the Pope has a special importance, and it's of special prestige as well as special spiritual power.
And speaking of that, it's now 25 years since the Holy See and Israel have bilateral ties. It's 70 years actually since the establishment of the State of Israel. What role can the Holy See make? What contribution can it give to peace in your region?
Well, it's the encouragement of peace, giving it its spiritual support, which is of importance.
I'm going to follow up on the question of what contribution the Holy See can make to peace in the region. So President Trump has decided to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. At the same time, Pope Francis is calling for the international status of Jerusalem to be maintained. How much weight does a statement from the Pope have? How much does his opinion count?
Look, Jerusalem is the capital of the State of Israel. It's been the capital of the State of Israel, and it will be the capital of the State of Israel. Christians as well as Jews are aware of the fact, and those who are not should be aware of the fact, that Jerusalem is the oldest capital in the world. It was decided to be the capital of the Jewish people, chosen to be the capital of the Jewish people by the Jewish king, King David, 1,000 years before Christ. And since then it served as no capital of any other people except for the Jewish people. So in this respect, the president move is logical, rational, and appreciated.
And Pope Francis's calls for the international status to be maintained, does that make a difference?
Well, I mentioned our position, and based also on top of realities on the ground, also based on historical as well as religious grounds, which Jews and Christians share together.
In February, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, as we remember well, was closed for 3 days to protest an Israeli tax plan on church properties in Jerusalem. Now, looking back at that standoff, could it have been avoided? Looking forward, what's going to happen?
Yes, the Prime Minister of Israel decided to intervene himself on this issue. And the issue now is under consideration by both him, the Mayor of Jerusalem, as well as a special minister, Minister Tzachi Hanegbi, who was nominated by the Prime Minister to coordinate this matter. In Rome, as well as in many other major cities in the world, churches, as well as other religious orders and institutions, pay tax on revenues from commercial activities, such as cafeterias, museums, when they sell tickets, entrance tickets, and hostels, etc. It's not the situation in Jerusalem. Yet, the matter is under review and it's being considered by the Prime Minister, and we are waiting, the results.
There was a recent report in The Guardian saying that Christians in Jerusalem are feeling threatened by the Jewish settlers. Is that a true reflection of the situation on the ground as far as you know it?
Actually, it's the opposite reflection of the situation on the ground, and I'll explain to you why. We are proud of the situation of the Christian community in Israel. It's quite unique. It's unlike any other country. Definitely, it's in contrast to what's going on around us in countries in the Middle East, from which Christians are escaping. But it's even unlike in other countries in the world, because Israel is among the few countries in the world where the Christian community has skyrocketed since its foundation. In 1948, when the state was established, the number of Christians was 34,000, end of 1948. Now it's 170,000, from 34,000 to 170,000, not including many others who are in Israel temporarily, such as foreign workers and other communities. But citizens of Israel, 170,000. Now, not only the increase in number speaks for itself. From a socio-economic point of view, the Christian community in Israel is above the Israeli average when it comes to income, when it comes to education and educational achievements, performances by churches, schools in Israel, which are getting generous subsidy by the Israeli government. So Christians come to Israel, they don't leave Israel. Again, it's a source of pride for us.
Out of curiosity, when there is, let's say, moments of increased tension in the Middle East, in your country, how does it work with the Holy See? Can you give us some insight into your daily job here?
Well, of course, it's part of my job to update the Holy See, to draw the Holy See attention to our position and to realities on the ground And, but our job, my job as ambassador, goes beyond politics, which is, of course, a major part of my job. But we do so much, and naturally, in the cultural field, when it comes to relations between Israel and the Holy See, it goes without saying that the cultural component is important. We are also part of the ongoing Judeo-Catholic dialogue. So on top of being an embassy, which like any other embassy, has the bilateral state-to-state component, in our work we also have, beyond it, also, you know, the Jewish Catholic dialogue. And we live in unique times. We are fortunate in this respect that relations between Jews and Catholics are as they should be. Acknowledging what unites us, and we are united by the same root, biblical root, by the same virtues and values which we share. And we are fortunate by the fact that now it's being emphasized rather than being de-emphasized. This message, you know, the spirit of Nostra Aetate, and all what followed it, should be spread and brought to the attention of all believers. We live in a golden age when it comes to relations between Jews and Catholics, and we have to continue, do our best to continue, you know, bring it even to higher heights and achievements.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Oren David, Israeli Ambassador to the Holy See, thank you so very much for talking to us.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
Thank you.
Join us next week on Vaticano. Thanks for watching.